Let's get a check now on cowboy builders. Also, this is what the Prime Minister is saying. He says that he's going to crack down on them. Now, Andy Burnham plans to include a government-backed database of trusted traders. That will be going live next month. Well, let's speak live now then on LBC News to Rico Wojtulewicz, who's from the National Federation of Builders, and he joins me live now. It's good to have you with us, Rico. From the outset, it sounds like a fantastic idea to see traders that are trusted by the government. But what's your take?
Hi, Vanessa. Well, look, I think it's a good idea in many ways because a lot of consumers don't quite understand the whole kind of process of construction. The bad builders give the good ones a bad name, and it ends up that there is a lot of discussion about how we improve things that doesn't really get through to the majority of people. So this will help. I don't think the code of conduct is probably going to be the most important part. Is probably the fact that the money will be put aside so that works will be done in stages and then people will be able to kind of reclaim a bit of their money. That's a very sensible way because, we offer all these services as part of the NFB, National Federation of Builders. However, there's a long tail in construction and hopefully this captures a lot of the long tail. But when you're talking about real rogue builders that just do terrible jobs, it's not really going to touch the sides on them. And, we think there are better ideas to improve that for people.
That is very interesting what you just said there. So you mentioned about the money being put aside so that at different stages that money will then go to the builder. Tell us more about how, from your understanding, that will work. Does that mean that the customer will have to pay a big chunk of money to be sitting in an account somewhere? How does it all work?
Well, that's to be found out exactly from the government how that operates and whether there'll be a cost associated. But there's some changes to what's called late payment as well. So making sure that people get paid on time. There's kind of a process that's occurring in the same way there. So what we think is going to happen, money will be put aside and it will be accessed when the works are completed at a certain time. We don't think there are going to be checks done to make sure that they're done to a certain standard. That's where things get a bit tricky because a minority of builders are bad, but it's enough to cause an issue. But there are also bad customers who, if they control when that money goes out, they may decide, well, actually, I'm just never going to release it. So there's a bit of a balance to be struck here. And so the government might be taking on more than it can chew. But either way, it's still a good idea that they're trying to capture that long tail.
I think you have read my mind, Rico, because as you were speaking, I was just sat here thinking, well, actually, hang on a minute, who's going to decide when that work is good enough that you actually get paid? Because my standard could be completely different to the builder. And we could see, it's very interesting, as you're saying, we could see a bit of back and forth in this area, couldn't we?
Yeah, exactly. And standards are a really interesting element because you may employ somebody that says, well, actually, this work needs to be done this particular way, but also if we discover this, you need to get this done and there'll be additional cost to that. You then may get somebody else to do a quote and they say, oh, no, you don't need to worry about that. Quite often, that person is the rogue builder and they're the ones that win the contract. And when things go wrong, that's when the issues start. And so tackling that element is going to be the government's, I guess, most important task. And again, we do think there are better ways to do this. We think every building should have like a digital building passport and then all works are recorded so that we can actually shine a light on who the worst actors are and who the best ones are, rather than a trusted trader scheme, which, if I'm honest, there are a couple that the government operates. Government funding is one called Trustmark and MCS. I'm not going to, they've been a success in many ways, but there has been recently a discussion in the House of Lords because more than 80% of work on one of those schemes was a failure on external wall insulation. And there are real concerns about that. Still lots to discover on those projects, but there is no silver bullet. You need to create an environment for consumer protection, and we think a digital building passport that records all works is the best approach rather than a trusted trader voluntary scheme that adds costs and bureaucracy.
Well, I tell you what, Rico, I think Andy Burnham needs to be knocking on your door to have a little chat with you, get a bit more details on that, on your scheme that you just mentioned there. Really good speaking to you. Thank you very much indeed. That is Rico Wojtulewicz, who's from the National Federation of Builders.